having a conversation the other day with someone about tools that I might use in the creative process. What instruments do I use? And earlier, someone had asked me about, do I play a musical instrument? Which I said, no, not really. I've played around with different kinds of instruments, but I've never taken one up. However, I have taken up some tools that I use in the creative process, and that's what I wanted to share with you today. Hi, Stephen Hobbs here from the Wealth Movement. Now, I wanted to share these tools, instruments with you because they hint at what it is that I enjoy being, having, and doing as a solo ager. Now, through the years, I have brought different kinds of tools and instruments into play, but there are two in particular that I find intriguing and ways that I can continue to expand my thinking, my thoughts, my feelings in sharing them in ways that make sense for me and most people who interact with how I share them through the creative process enjoy them as well. But to set this up from a tools point of view, I just want to go back and take a look at over the years, there were three types of scopes that I get involved with. And I think you'll see the connection here, especially if you are an ager, solo ager. Do you remember the microscope in your biology class? And some of you may even continued it into your life. I remember playing around with the microscope and looking, wow, looking into the smaller size of things and went, this is really wonderful way for me to get to know about maybe plants. And then it opened up the whole world of atoms and electrons and protons and all that, and that I did a little bit of reading with and the different kinds of microscopes that go with that. Then there was the sense of the telescope to go out big and to be able to get involved with astronomy and out into the world beyond, into the planets beyond. And we certainly, between the microscopes and the telescopes, there have been great strides made in technological advances. Now, I don't play with either of those anymore, but in a sense, there's something in the middle called the stethoscope. Now, I didn't become a doctor or nurse. So I acknowledge that. I did become a first aid instructor trainer, first aid instructor, but I didn't actually use the stethoscope because I felt it was a little beyond my own training and I didn't want to give anyone false security if I pulled it out of my backpack or something like that when I was playing in the outdoors or walking in the outdoors. But I mentioned the stethoscope is because it's what is present around the notion of the heart and lungs, about being here. Microscope being smaller, telescope being bigger, stethoscope about being present. And I just acknowledge the use of those three scopes as tools, as instruments that are available. And that brings me back to the solo ager story of what instruments, tools am I using today? And I said that I wanted to bring two into the foreground. Now, they are pencil and pen. And I'm going to add into the show more notes or the notes that accompany this video. I'm not going to go over the origins of the words or all the different kinds and types of pencils, grades of pencils, or types of pens. That's not what this is about. What I wanted to do was emphasize how important pencils and pens are to me. But I also acknowledge is that I'm stretching that now into the technological advances like the stylus pen for tablets that I can draw and write on and use as presentations. And I might do a presentation here live using that stylus on a topic that's coming up in the near future. But this morning I found myself out on the veranda having a sit with the sun and nature and having a think and feel about some topics related to solo aging and legacy, nature, and mentoring, that combination. And I was sitting there and I thought, oh, hang on, I'm using my pens. Oh, they're different colored pens. I left my pencil on the table, but I was playing with the pens. And I thought, well, yeah, these are something that I have used for years and years in all the different kinds of journals that I have written. I have sketched, I have doodled, all the different ways of using pencils and pens. So, from a musical instrument analogy, yes, I'm using these pencils and pens in my creative process to share the narrative on pages instead of on notes through an instrument. I'm doing it on pages using pencils and pens. And when I was thinking about that in relation to these conversations that I've been having, I sat back and I went, interesting. I am using them actually more now. I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting because I went onto the computer and I was typing most of my notes and everything. But I find myself pulling out my blank pieces of paper and my journals and writing again using pencils and pens. So I guess the storyline I'm sharing with you is that these instruments, these tools are available for the creative process. But what's also interesting is sometimes what you start with, you might come back to. Now, I know there's lots of technological advances that are happening for pens and pencils. I get that. But sometimes just interacting with those what I'll call simpler instruments, the better it is. Now, I was trying to chase down a story that I had a really great chuckle around, and it's to do with space. And someone said, "What can we use to write in space, knowing that the pens don't always work in this sort of zero gravity?" And someone said, well, let's just invent a new pen. And someone sitting at the table says, why don't you use a pencil? Now, I'm paraphrasing that. It's a short story. I can't remember exactly where I heard that story from. I'm going to do a little bit more digging and see if I can actually find it. But if not, it's still a great story that I heard. Even if it was an urban myth, I think it's still a great story because it makes sense. The pencil. Just come back to use a simple pencil to draw, to write, to sketch, to doodle as a solo ager, to bring your thoughts and feelings to the foreground. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, because if there's anything that's important to you as a solo ager, it's to be able to share your stories from the experiences that you've had, to open up your narrative, to share what it is that might be of value to others who can listen in if you're going to share from the paper or read what it is that you have written on that paper, whether it's publish a book, write some notes, a blog article. Hey, turn your notes into a video like this. There's different ways in which to express. And if you start with a pencil, it's amazing what will come to the foreground for you so that you might share those thoughts and feelings in being for the world, with the planet, from the whole. So I just wanted to bring that to the foreground. Again, conversations being had. Someone asked me about musical instruments, and I just had this sort of twirl around and walk around. And I thought, I want to share about the importance of pencils and pens. So again, on the show more notes, there are updates for you about pencils and pens. I didn't go into stylus pens or anything, just the basics of pens and pencils. And I hope you enjoy reading them as you've listened into this video. So with that, I am going to close off. I'm going to wish you the best of the day and take care.